They thought of themselves as British, and British they were. They had come from the mother country to 13 independent tracts of land made available to them by the king. They had grown and multiplied, and generation after generation, for the better part of 200 years, they had thrived in the new land. They were British. They were subjects of the crown, but during all of those years, they had developed their own identities. They had elected their own governments, collected their own taxes. They had taken care of their own, but they were British. The king had protected them from attack, from foreign shores, and from the native peoples from whom the land had been taken in the first place. They thought they owed everything to the crown, their protected way of life, for they were British. By the 1770s, though, some in these 13 protected colonies had begun to sting under the increasing taxation, forced upon them by a parliament across a heaving ocean, a parliament in which they had no voice, even though they were British. As if it had been planned, in all of the 13 colonies, groups were forming to protest the growing kind of slavery they felt was being thrust upon them for the king, as if he seemed ungrateful for their loyalty, for they were British. The Sons of Liberty, they called themselves. They met in taverns, sometimes in secret, for if word leaked out about their deep resentment, they could be branded as traitors to the crown and be hanged, for they were British. And then, on the cold night of the 5th of March in 1770, on the streets of Boston, a city swarming with British troops sent there by the king to quash the growing spoken resentment of the people to a barrage of new taxes coming from London, a confrontation between a small group of troops and a growing mob ended up with shots ringing out. When it was over, 5 citizens of Boston lay dead, killed by the king's troops, even though they were British. The resentment grew, and so did the correspondence going up and down the colonies among the Sons of Liberty. Intellectual discussion led to civil disobedience. On the night of May 10, 1773, a prearranged group of young men dressed as Native Americans boarded a ship laden with a cargo of tea, newly taxed by yet another act of a distant parliament, and threw the chests overboard. They would not pay for what they were beginning to see as fees imposed by the mother country for just being British. More troops were sent across the waves to the colonies, and with each arriving ship, full of troops charged with bringing the colonies into line, came a deeper and deeper feeling in the New World that their allegiance to England might be unearned, and they began to doubt if they were really British anymore. In the spring of 1775, as troops were moving toward Lexington and Concord to seize a warehouse of arms stored by locals, another shot rang out. No one knows who fired it. It doesn't matter. The Sons of Liberty had begun to wonder if it had not become time to leave the home of their increasingly ungrateful and greedy parents and become the children of a new world. Children who were Americans and no longer British. In Philadelphia they gathered, men from all of England's colonies. Some had known a few of the others' names from correspondence and published reports, but that first meeting was awkward. Men from 13 very different little colonies, men with very different backgrounds and beliefs, but suddenly with a common goal, the task of redefining who they were. Their first meeting did not fully cement their cause, but they carried home the fiery words of a delegate from Virginia who said he would rather die than not have liberty. and that an attack on any of the colonies would be considered to be an attack on all of them. "We are all Americans," the words rang out. "We are no longer British." In less than a year, the men would meet again behind closed doors in the heat of a Philadelphia summer. They would decide that safeguarding the common good was more than a necessity. It was their right as free men. They would reinvent the idea of government. No more a king on a throne throwing crumbs of liberty to the masses below him. They would turn the world upside down. Government begins with the people, they would write in black and white. No man is above the law. All men are created equal. They were not inventing these liberties. They were simply stating in writing that they had had these liberties all along. They would forge a new beginning, for they now were Americans.